Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Next in Time podcast. I'm your host, ST Tangarella, and today our guest is none other than Tino Go. He is the founder and CEO of Borrow, which is the world's first rapid manufacturing shared economy marketplace and platform. It emphasizes the focus on deglobalizing manufacturing, and they pride themselves on using beautiful and robust materials in an easy and robust, ready to assemble package. So Tino is looking to help make a major future impact in providing, small businesses, providing efficient shipping and manufacturing and making manufacturing more simpler for small businesses. So Tino, welcome to the show.
Yeah, you got it. You got we're like DoorDash, but instead of delivering lunch, we're delivering custom furniture and custom cabinetry.
It's like,
Uh,
are you currently focused more on the furniture, or is it like, are you trying to focus on other areas as well?
we're focused on cabinetry because it provides high order values and we achieve economies of scale on the manufacturing and also good material yield when we buy the materials. Our average order value for a kitchen is around $15,000, and over the 20 to 30 panels that we use, we can get a good material utilization yield.
Makes sense. So what made you decide on really making that major impact in deglobalizing manufacturing?
It's really easy. It was completely financially driven by eliminating long distance shipping and packaging and inventory handling. We remove all of the shipping and handling that typically wastes 40 to 50% of the retail revenues.
All
So it
right.
was just, the avoidance of long distances is creates natural savings, and we use those savings as a cost arbitrage.
All right. So how has work been so far with your startup? Just wondering, you started this a while back, but how has it been in terms of progress?
Yeah, we've proved our operations, they replicate. We're in 29 cities, and so with the initial pre-seed round, we proved the technology works. We're in 29 cities. We're working to scale volumes by setting up a dealer network with kitchen and bath supply, like showrooms, and we also received a patent. The patent is on the use of augmented and virtual reality, not simply as a visualization tool, but as a way to configure products. So any non-technical user or consumer can
Nice.
take the image of a product, and as they're changing the image of the product, the length, width, height, depth, or the form of that visual, they're actually changing the engineering file and the machine instructions that are behind the engineering file.
All right.
And so
Nice. Keep
so
going.
we just presented to the Department of Defense, and the Defense Logistics Agency is super interested in, well, at least someone is socializing it within the Defense Logistics Agency to potentially deploy it as a way to, well, it's a really disruptive way of getting parts
All right.
onto in theater into the field.
All right. So the way you're explaining is that it's just basically making shipping and handling more cost effective in a way, right?
Well, for certainly for furniture and cabinetry, it's making shipping and handling more cost effective. And then our operations have no capex or fixed overhead requirements because we're tapping into the existing machines in the customer's hometown. So it's that shared economy utilization of those idle machines is part of our structural cost advantage, if you want to call it that. But the technology, as the Department of Defense would use it, would be to allow a non-technical user to specify parts out in the field, in theater. The warfighter can modify parts for in a kinetic environment. because the person closest to the problem knows how to solve that problem, how to modify the part that continually breaks, for example, for re-engineering, or they can modify a part for a damaged vehicle so that the vehicle is redeployed and put into action more quickly.
Got it. And so, okay, makes sense. So I'm just wondering, so tell me more about your background, like how you got started in this, but have you always been very entrepreneurial and especially focused more on the supply chain logistics side of things?
I have been entrepreneurial. When I was 8 years old, I dropped flyers in mailboxes, which is a federal offense, but offering to work, do lawn work and clean garages. But and then right out of high school, despite 2 scholarships, I dropped out of college after 6 weeks and started my own business. That was doing logistics coordination in the advertising industry, doing essentially logistics and operations when you had to go on location or in studio for a photo shoot, for example.
Like, where is this, Tina? Where was this set?
I started in Detroit, and then went to Los Angeles, and then I was recruited to go to Paris, where I worked for that company for 7 years.
Oh, nice. He got the wider experience set there.
Yeah. And then when I quit advertising, it was to learn economics and finance. So the University of Michigan gave me a scholarship to study economics, and then I followed that with the MBA in finance and most of a Master of Accounting. And since 2000, I've been in corporate finance. Initially investment banking, and then when that imploded with the dot-com bust in 9/11, I did workouts and turnarounds for a few years, and then I met my ex and started to raise a family in Cleveland, and that's when I started direct oversight of companies. The first company was a small $12 million manufacturer and distributor of horticultural products.
Wow.
And we grew that to $85 million in 5 years. And my last role was
before you continue, I was going to ask, like, what were some things you've done to help increase the revenue from 12 million to 85 million?
Well, I wasn't directly responsible for revenue growth. I was a controller. And so I was just scaling systems and scaling accounting and rolling up the 2 acquisitions that the 2 acquisitions, and rationalizing overhead between the acquisitions.
Right. So now after that company, you said you worked as a controller again for another company, or which one was that?
Yeah, a number of middle market companies as controller or CFO. And then my last role was overseeing a $1.2 billion business unit of a German chemical company. And that's when I had this idea of, we've got all these robotics, digital manufacturing machines that I thought, we should be able to network all of these machines into a virtual factory and make fulfillment and more effective, less expensive, less of a hassle. And also by using the most proximate, the closest machine, we can also allow for customization, because shipping becomes negligible at that point.
All right. And so tell me about how you managed to start Baru. Like, how did you come up with the idea?
It was a 3-point observation. First of all, I wanted to get a bookcase for my own house in Cleveland, and I couldn't find it, which is a fairly common occurrence. But when I tried to get it made, I discovered it was a medieval process to get a bookcase made.
Like, what year was this? What year was this?
This was 2014.
Oh, 2014. Okay. I initially thought like the logistics of doing the customization was like more efficient back then as well. That's what I thought, but I think it's not the same.
That's that's what shocked me. It should have been.
Yeah.
And because I knew the state of software and automation was to a point that, I thought that I should be able to just imagine something and the machine should start cutting parts. And then when I started investigating how come the wood furniture and industry was continued to be so backwards, it's I discovered that it was too intertwined the supply chain, and then I read The Innovator's Dilemma, and I came to realize that this idea was so disruptive that the existing industry would never adopt it. It would it was too disruptive to their existing business models. And then when I realized that, and I also came to realize that there are thousands of these what they call CNC machines. They're robotic cutting machines in the woodworking space, and I also discovered that on average they're only used 2 hours a day. The initial customer frustration, plus the realization that the industry wasn't going to change, plus the discovery that there were thousands of these idle machines, led me to this virtual factory idea. And then that's when my corporate finance thinking took over, and it's like, okay, localized on-demand production, that eliminates all of the cost of shipping and handling inventory in a global supply chain. And that is up to between 40 and 50% of the retail revenues are wasted on those two cost activities. And that's what led me to develop Baru. And then during the journey, we came up with this idea that augmented reality would be the perfect way to communicate what's in someone's imagination and convert it into machine instructions.
Makes sense. And so what you're trying to do is what you were doing was that making automation happen, but at the same time kind of make it very efficient for people to really create the idea of what they want to buy, right? Rather
Exactly.
than because if you notice, like people go to the furniture store or someplace, and if they want to get a cabinet or a kitchen cabinet or or basically a room cabinet, they are two different entities altogether, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're looking to make it very customizable, it's very hard to do, and then it takes a lot of time, right? Like, because the furniture store has to make the order, they have to make sure they have the right fitting requirements, and even the what do you call it, the cabinet itself has to be the right fit for the room. So and the right color, what the customer wants. If you combine them all together, it takes a lot of work and effort. And so what you're doing with Baru is that you're trying to just make it more make it very quick. Just like, okay, you can just present what the customer wants. He wants a blue cabinet with, like, say, with a good amount of spacing, and then you just fill that out, and then Baru, whoever the vendor is, they receive it, and then they just send that over immediately, right? So
Yeah, it's essentially we have a bunch of products, whether it's furniture or cabinets, and each product you can order in 10,000 size variants. A lot of size variants, and dozens of colors and materials. So every product that we sell is available in 100,000 to 1,000,000 SKUs.
right.
And for us, it's a simple file change. But for a customer, it feels very customized. And so, and when I did an initial survey to figure out whether there was a demand for this, I sent out this a 10 to 12 minute unpaid survey on Reddit, and I got all of these responses, and people were writing paragraphs, describing their frustration. And And that was the initial inkling that, okay, maybe there is demand here. And then, when you look at examples like if you Google IKEA hacking, there,
It's like, hey,
that,
let's just create your own what do you call it, a bed set, rather
yeah,
than rather than go to Bed Bath and Beyond, buy your own, buy what they sell. You can just create your own, and you just hack it to how you want it to fit your own lifestyle.
that's exactly it. And, our biggest seller has been the desks, custom sized desks with drawers, sit stand desks with drawers, because sit stand desks rarely come with drawers, and you can get all of our desks like between 40 inches wide to all the way up to 7 feet long, and depending on your working style, your whatever decor you want for your home or office. And now we're working with cabinetry.
Oh,
Same
cabinet.
principle.
So, what are the areas you really put making Borrow focus on? Like, out of all the, I mean, I know you're focused on furniture, but do you have any? Are you just solely focused on the furniture aspects, or are you looking to expand beyond just the furniture?
Right now we're scaling with cabinetry.
Yeah.
Because our business is not about selling the products. Our business is we're a market maker for underused robotic manufacturing capacity. But we create the demand for these hours of machine time supply by selling products. So when we sell a product, we create the machine instructions and supply the materials, and that consumes some of this idle time. So that's our business. Our business is it's pretty akin to DoorDash and ghost kitchens.
Right.
We promote lunch, or in our case, kitchen cabinetry, and then we drive that machine time demand to the local machine owner. And then we benefit that machine owner by, increasing utilization on their machines without encumbering their management or their engineering time, or barely touching administration, and dropping straight to the factory floor with our manufacturing instructions and the materials that we supply.
All right.
And everything is done in a hyper local manner. Both the material supply and the local delivery, to eliminate as much freight costs as possible.
And so, why is this vision needed for what you like? Why do you feel that? Like, what are the issues out there? Why do customers feel like they need to use your product to be able to get what they want?
Customers. Going back to my example, if you look up IKEA hacking, the fact that there are so many people hacking IKEA standard products to customize it for unique use cases is evidence that that mass-produced goods don't serve customers well. And then there's a macro view. Most industries are premised on the fact that on the assertion that producing overseas is the most effective way to produce consumer goods. But when you stack all of the inventory overhead and long distance shipping, that's not true. And so what we're doing with on-demand customized manufacturing is we're essentially making the old paradigm of mass production being the best method obsolete for certain categories of products, including wood, furniture, and cabinetry. But ultimately, we're building the platform for the future of retail, where everything is going to be made for the individual buyer.
All right. So, do you feel that this this is what you're trying to do is, as I mentioned earlier, this is looking to deglobalize manufacturing. Now this is more meant for like the local manufacturer, like basically empowering the local manufacturers to design what the customer wants rather than, okay, the customer sends the requirements. They then have to send this over to an overseas factory, which, takes more time. I mean, the only, but and then they create it, then they spend some time and money and effort into shipping the product back. So what you're trying to do is like, okay, let's say since you say you're from Ohio, right? Let's say, for example, the city
Mhm,
of, let's say Cincinnati.
mhm,
You live in Cincinnati, and let's say there is a factory across in the town of Dayton, like about 50 miles north.
mhm.
Is that, I don't know how far it is, but let's just say roughly close by, and say there's a factory up in Dayton that focuses on building customizable desks, and then you live in Cincinnati and you place an order on Borrow. Instead of having that go to China to have that manufactured, it's like you're just sending the request to your local factory in Dayton to send it back to you. Is that what's the focus is in a way?
Yeah, but it's not even sending yes, that's exactly it. It's deglobalizing manufacturing back down to the village level. And literally, it's our manufacturing always takes less than 50 miles away, less than an hour drive away, because our business model is actually based on the elimination of long distance transportation. So we only do last mile delivery because that way we can avoid all the packaging costs and all of the complex logistics involved with longer distance
Right.
shipping.
Yeah, because they say that more, as you mentioned, I think this, if let's just say if you had to implement this product in the Rust Belt states, especially where
Mhm.
there's a bunch of manufacturing plants that are just going out by the wayside, do you feel like if you were to implement this, there's a shot that, okay, people are looking to, let's say, reinvest in manufacturing here and then make things easier rather than having to do all the overseas stuff?
Eventually, there will be other companies in other industries. We're going to build our moats to competition, operational, technical, and brand moats, of course. But eventually, other companies and other will see how we're doing it, and they'll end up deglobalizing their own supply chains.
So you're trying to set up that movement to deglobalize.
Absolutely, absolutely, because just the furniture industry, the container importation emits enough CO2 to every year to drive to replace 2 million cars, or it's the CO2 equivalent of 2 million cars on the road every year.
Yeah,
And we eliminate that CO2 by local production.
makes sense. And is it so? How many customers do you currently have like using your app?
The app is not actually in use right now. We didn't have the budget to maintain it, even though we're shopping it to the Department of Defense for deployment for them. We'll need to refactor it, update the software. The software
So,
has moved on since our MVP. Um,
so what you need is funding to be able to, get the product back into optimal shape.
yes, but we'll only focus on the the AR technology when there's a customer use case. The funding that we're raising right now will only be used to accelerate our revenues, because the revenues will generate margin that will be reinvestable into more growth. And
So
so,
what's the revenue focused on? Is it like, are you building a sales team or marketing team for it, or?
no, we're establishing a dealer network with kitchen and bath showrooms
Right.
in the Bay Area and New York metro areas. And the goal with that is to get enough showrooms so that we can get one, well, the goal is to get as many kitchen sales as possible, of course, but even at low penetration, we're getting one kitchen sold per month per million people. That generates 6 million of sales and 2 million in margin that we can use to further intensify our growth. And,
Yeah,
and then from,
oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I was
yeah,
just
from,
sorry about that. I think this is one thing. What I think both of us are really keen on telling something, and then it just comes in the way. But no, I was just gonna say, eventually, once you have the revenue stream, you'll be able to really focus on what Baru's mission is, right? Which, as I mentioned earlier, deglobalizing manufacturing.
well, the mission takes the mission fulfillment of the mission just happens automatically because it's fulfillment of the mission of deglobalization just happens when we make our sales and fulfill. The whole point is now that we've proven the technology replicates, we're in the 29 cities. As soon as we have the margin to redeploy into geographic expansion, we want to be in the top 60 metro areas. And so if we're selling one kitchen per month per million people, that's $40 million a year.
Nice.
And about 14 million in gross margin. And so the focus is really setting up this dealer network.
Okay,
and
so
going as fast as possible on that, because that will create the cash flow that will allow us to work on our technology and other deployments, moat creation, branding, all of the things that will allow us to be a defensible business.
Sounds good. And all right, cool. So I think we got a lot of questions in terms of what you're looking, what problem you're solving, what you're currently working on, and what you're looking to build in the future. So in terms of advice, like, you worked in the sector for a period of time. So what advice would you give to other future founders out there, especially either in manufacturing or just building their own startup? Like, what advice would you give?
I think you have to know your own strengths and your own skills, and work to double down on those, and back test your assumptions as often as possible, and then build a team. I've got a fabulous team, and I've had a fabulous team over multiple years, even as they've had to roll off for family or personal reasons, or just the fact that startup life is hard. But build that team and allow them to leverage their strengths.
Makes sense. All right, cool, Tino. I just want to thank you again for taking the time to be a part of the Next in Time podcast. And I'm looking forward to seeing how Baru can really make that impact in deglobalizing manufacturing.
We're well on our way. Thank you.